Good evening and welcome once again to Gaming Under the Influence. I'm Mike and this is Alex, and we're here to talk to you once again about fucking video games.
Fucking video
After one or
games.
two drinks on this Saturday, June the 20th of 2020. Still in quarantine, although a bunch of businesses in our locale have recently opened up, if I'm not mistaken. Hey, Alex?
Yeah, it seems like it. Things are sort of getting rolling, getting back to normal a little bit.
Yes, sir. And in the midst of all that, in the past couple of days, we've been doing a fair amount of business, at least more than we have recently. And it's mostly to do with The Last of Us 2, isn't it?
It seems that way, doesn't it?
Made a couple of deliveries myself in the past 24 hours. And I know that since then, you've begun playing it, man.
I have, unfortunately.
If anybody listens to our podcast, you'll remember us saying that we didn't intend on checking this one out, actually, just the other week. And it may be that our intuition was correct the first time.
That's the thing. Like, it's hard to say, we're not going to touch it at all. I mean, at the end of the day, we enjoy playing games,
like the medium,
covering
right?
games, talking about games, and especially, like, I'm a big fan of The Last of Us 1. I know you're not so much, but I am.
Yeah.
So for me to say I'm not going to play 2, it felt like, okay, maybe it deserves me giving it a try at least, right? Like,
Yeah, fuck.
realistically, right? Exactly. So we kind of flip-flopped. Even before I picked it up from you the other day, we seemed kind of hopeful on it. We were like, we're getting kind of tired of the people bitching about the leaks and saying, it's gonna be shit, blah blah blah. I felt hopeful, like maybe this is gonna turn out good, or at least better than what we had originally anticipated.
Instead, it might turn out okay.
Yeah, and I'm kind of sad to report that so far it's not.
It's not been that way. Yeah.
It's been terrible so far, honestly.
Yeah.
And I can be objective and fair. Like, I want to get into it. I have some stuff written down here. The first place I want to start with is I don't know how much of the original you have played, but if you remember, the original came out sort of towards the end of the PS3 life cycle, right? It was like very, very late in the game. And if I remember one thing about, it being called a masterpiece, and I do think the story is fantastic in the first, I do like it, but I remember the gameplay being somewhat criticized for sort of being like a little light on the gameplay, and it was sort of, to me, felt like it was serviceable enough to get through, like, to get the story of the game out, right? Like, it was just serviceable enough for that, right? Anyways, where I'm going with this is I feel like the gameplay hasn't really changed in this one. And for it to have been criticized, it wasn't groundbreaking then, and now we're a whole gen later, like the end of the PS4 lifespan, and it's largely the same thing. Like, there hasn't really been any improvement other than larger environments to explore, which is sort of like Gears 5 to me. Like, I was like, like, it's nice, don't get me wrong, it's cool, the environments are, we'll get into that, but so
that's a bit of a bummer, isn't it?
Yeah, so like where I'm going with this is, again, like, I find that, like, if a story is really good, like, these are story games, right? That's kind of the point of them, right? And the gameplay is it is polished. Like, I'm saying, it's serviceable enough to get the story out, right? So you can play and experience the story, and the gameplay parts aren't fucking terribly shit or boring or anything, right? But it's kind of a bummer that it hasn't advanced at all, like, from a whole generation, and it's like the gameplay is just the same, right? Which, again, like I said, it's serviceable, but in this case, it wouldn't be as much of a problem if the story was also good, or at least at the levels of number one. But I feel like the story is dog shit. So anyway, yeah. So
that's that's a bummer, but not entirely unexpected. Again, I guess, right?
yeah, we kind of expected that, right? But what I will say is, of course, not to be, just to shut this thing down and call it a piece of shit, because it does have beautiful graphics, like, just wonderful graphics, beautiful environments. The open spaces are actually, they're nice to explore, like, at least that they've given you this freedom to sort of explore the areas a little bit. I don't find that an issue or anything. I find it's nice, and it gives you more if you want to explore and find the parts so you can upgrade your shit a little bit more. It's completely optional, so it's up to you. That's all right. And again, the artists must have worked fucking crazy hard on this stuff. Like I said, the environments are beautifully fucking rendered. The music's fantastic. The soundtrack is great. All that stuff's amazing. Like, this is a AAA game. Let's be real here, right? Like, the animations for the most part are very good. Like, there's a lot of good work put into this game, right? And it does deserve praise for that. The programmers have done a fantastic job. Artists, that guy Gustavo, I can't remember his last name, who did the music from the first, back doing the second, did a bang on job. Very good.
It's all around. It's a pretty good mechanical product. You're saying it's
the-
not flawed technically in any sense.
Exactly. Like, so in that sense, like, it doesn't deserve to be rated, you know, like a fucking 5 out of 10 or any shit like that. But the biggest fault so far has just been the story, honestly. And I tried to go in with a positive outlook on it, but again, to say, like, we know Joel dies.
Mm-hmm.
And it happens rather early in the game. And I don't care that he dies. Like, yes, I like him. He's a character from the first, right? And you know, I like Joel, but his fate is ending in this game, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
And how it happens is also fine, but I don't like specifically or the events that lead up towards that, because the whole game kind of kicks off on like it kind of seems like almost like a fucking soap opera, like a teeny shit like Twilight story, like some kind of Stephanie Meyer creation, right?
Yeah, tell us one of the scenes, man. Your favorite one.
As in, like, favorite or?
Oh, your absolute favorite
Okay.
that you've seen so far.
It would have to be shortly after the beginning. They go on patrol, right? Because if you remember, this is actually a post-apocalyptic world, and there are infected and clickers running around, right? So aside from the whole, you know, teenage, I guess, love romance shit, there's shit going on, and they need to patrol the surrounding areas of their you know, community city to clear out the infected and make sure they're safe. Whatever. That sounds reasonable, right? So it's pretty normal. They go on their thing, and they stumble upon a character that they talk about. He must be dead because of the way they talk about him. He's dead, and they sort of stumble upon his little underground hide hole, I guess, where he lives or whatever, and it's just a fucking massive grow up.
Yeah.
It's like there's weed everywhere, dude. Weed fucking all over the place. And it's hilarious because they find like a jar of like already rolled dubs, and both Ellie and Dina, for the life of them, can't open this jar. I'm like, oh, what the fuck is this? Like, so they both are like, and Dina's like, fuck it. She just smashes on the ground, and they pick up a joint. They're like, let's get high. And I'm like, what? Like, what is this? This is so not The Last of Us. It's just so weird.
Growing up, God, it's coming of age story, dude.
Right?
You don't understand.
Yeah, in a fucking terribly, horribly brutal post-apocalyptic world. It's like, I mean, I get it. They're humans too. Like, some of this shit kind of got to be like, okay, you know, everyone's dumb when they're a teenager, and it sort of fits that. But at some point, it's like,
This is exactly the part I would hate.
This is too much. It was too much, honestly. Like, I can look past that if it's like somewhat reasonable, but it just seems fucking way out there. So
yeah, it seems jank, doesn't it?
They get fucking stoned, and then Dina, who's, you know, hooks up with Ellie, they make out and shit, and her ex-boyfriend walks in and gets all pissed, and it's like, well, what the fuck are you guys doing? You know, we're supposed to be patrolling. I mean, that's pretty obvious. And that's the moment when they find out that Joel and Tommy are missing. So before that, it switches over to you playing as Abby, and essentially you don't really know who she is or what the deal is with her, and you're with some dude, and he brings you outside like this like fucking mountain in the snow, like in a fucking blizzard, and he shows you like from an overlook that you can see the city where Joel and Tommy are, that place where Ellie lives and everything, right?
Serious.
And he's like, we found it. Joel's in there, right? And she's like, well, let's go get him. And he's like, I don't know. There's like, they have electricity, guns. Like, this sounds like a bad idea. I think we're out. We're not going to do it. And she's like, well, fuck that. I'm going to go by myself. She just dives down into the snow. And this thing was like far. I don't know if you saw the screenshot I sent you.
Yeah.
This is like a far away city, right? She just bombs down. Doesn't give a fuck, right? Like, totally going in to the clickers and the infected and this blizzard apparently too. That's, you know, anyway. So she eventually gets overrun by a bunch of infected and clickers, and she's pretty much gonna die until Joel and Tommy conveniently come to the rescue, and they rescue this stranger, which is so fucking weird because, like, how the hell does that happen?
Yeah, how does that
like
happen?
It just seems so like conveniently written in, you know what I mean, to the point where it's like, this is ridiculous.
It's a little funny.
It's like literally nothing in The Last of Us 1 was convenient. Nothing. Everything was painful and hard and just disturbing. Like, you couldn't get anywhere in that game convenient. Like, nothing. That was not even like a thing in that game. Convenience.
What's your take on all this shit though? Like, why is it like this? Like, what happened? The writers changed, you know?
Well, we know Neil Druckmann is the sole director, whereas I think The Last of Us 1 had him and Bruce Straley or someone else was like directing it with him. I believe he had a not as significant as a hand in the first than he did in this one, and there must have been some kind of shift in writers. I bet if you look it up, it's totally written differently than the original. And again, that's not a problem, but if it was written well, it would be fine. I just don't feel like it is. I feel like the pacing is fucked up. Like the first couple hours are just way too rushed. Like that shit just happens, and then conveniently, when it cuts back to Ellie and Dina after they get caught getting stoned and making out, then they figure out that Joel and Tommy are missing, and Joel and Tommy end up following Abby because her place is closer than the city. Just like, why are they so fucking far out? Like, I don't get it. Whatever. Anyway, I can look past that, I guess. But they conveniently head back to their cabin, and right away, fucking Abby just takes out a shotgun, blows fucking Joel in the legs. They fucking they start beating him up, and Ellie and Dina and the guy Jesse are like, we gotta find Joel, and they somehow just stumble upon this mansion, cabin, lodge, whatever. Like, God knows how far away. Yeah, like that's what I mean. Like, it's just ridiculous. Yeah. So then, you know, they walk in on that and they pin her down. Ellie's screaming like, "Don't do it, don't do it!" Like, again, I'm fine with that scene. You know, that fact that happened doesn't bother me. Like, Joel was killed in front of Ellie. That's pretty powerful. I mean, you know, but the way that it just happened was so unbelievable.
Why?
It's just the convenience of it all, just how like you have to really play through it to see like how rushed and ridiculous it happens. It's like a fucking kids show that doesn't have any pacing and things just sort of happen, right? Like it's not good storytelling or writing. I'm sorry, I can't. Like,
sure, man. I'm not surprised, I guess.
And then you switch back and forth a few times between like Ellie and Abby, and I don't know. I don't really feel any connection between them. Like, I'm not invested in the story, whereas in a story game, that's important. You need to feel like you're right there with the characters, right? Like in number 1, I felt that. Like, I wanted to see this thing through and see what the fates of Joel and Ellie were, right? And what transpires towards the end and everything. This one, I don't get that. I don't have the same feeling. I don't know. So, like, of course, there's good and bad things, but for a story game to have a story that seems this weak, that's a big fucking problem, right?
Like, seems like it's lacking any kind of internal logic between the events that occur. It sounds like you're saying.
It's all just like random stuff happening, and then like pretty much the overlaying plot to this is that, well, they killed Joel, now we're gonna go fuck them up and kill all of them. It's like I can even live with that. Just literally the first couple hours and how the shit transpired, and then even some of the cheesy like teeny stuff, like they were talking about, oh, last night was crazy, like Dina made out with me, and like, what are you doing tonight? Like, what? That stuff seems like not important in this world. I don't know, maybe I'm just picking at it, but yeah.
No, that sounds like it makes sense, and it's to that effect actually. Like the first game, early on you find out Ellie's bitten and she's fucking good with getting bitten, so the guy understands the implications of that, and there's immediately some weight to the narrative that's lacking in a fucking story that concerns merely like, oh, I fucking hate you because you killed my baba. Like, yeah,
basically cheap revenge plot, right?
That's what it reduces.
Which again, I could almost like look past it if I cared about the characters enough, but like I just don't.
I see what you mean. I've yet to experience it for myself, but I fucking am almost certain I'm gonna feel exactly the same way as you, man.
The whole time I was playing it, I was pretty much like, "You're gonna hate this. Don't even bother."
yeah.
But by all means, if you want to see it yourself, like I don't know how far I'm gonna get into it. I'm only about 10 hours in, and just I want to see it through just to like validate that like what I'm saying is, you know what I mean, consistent throughout.
Yeah.
To not say, oh, I played 10 hours and I found a shit and I'm just gonna drop it. I mean, that's fine, but like we're in the position where I want to talk about it and I want to really put my thoughts out there, and I honestly think it's so far it is extremely overrated. Like, how the hell did this get 96? I mean, we know why, but that's another thing that pisses me off, and I'm gonna say it is that it seems largely that they've sort of put themselves in a position where they're devoid of any criticism, because it's like as soon as you criticize, oh, you don't like lesbians or you don't like this, you don't like, but it's not about that for me. I don't like, look at the fucking Last of Us DLC. That's when you find out that Ellie is a lesbian because she kisses a girl that she was friends with in that segment, and it was a fucking, I liked that DLC. The little story there, it was maybe like 5 or 6 hours, whatever the hell it was, but it was well done. It was fucking well written. It was, everything was good. So
Sweet.
I'm not a believer of this.
It's just on that issue.
No, I have nothing fucking, I don't care about that or any of that shit.
Thing we said before too was that on its own, this is not enough to make anybody care much about anything, right? Like whatever who cares, honestly, man? Is it even worth anything, you know?
Yeah.
But I understand exactly what you're saying. It's not because of that. It's because of the fact that a story game with a bad story is not much of a game, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at with this whole thing.
For me, like, it feels like no matter how it pans out, like knowing now what its substance is, that I'm like, I don't like projects like that, you know, in their very nature. Like, I just don't care for narratives that fucking draw all of their weight from not from fucking the concepts on show or the fucking stakes or the universe, but instead from the emotions of the characters. Like, I don't give a shit, man. I don't give a fuck if every character in The Last of Us dies, to be honest with you. Like,
yeah, I
I'd
don't
be
care
more
about that
interested
either.
in the world afterwards if everyone became a clicker. That would probably be a better narrative than the one Neil Druckmann came up with.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's yeah. I don't know, man. Again, like Joel dies. That's fine. Like, you know, I don't even care that he died like a shitty, not honorable death. It's a brutal world out there. That if anything fits the theme of The Last of Us more than anything else in this game. He dies.
Why would he die a good death? Who said stories work that way? What the fuck?
You know, all the people you kill in this game, you like brutally, savagely fucking murder them. Like you crush their heads with your fucking foot, and or like a pipe with fucking a baseball bat with nails. Like nobody dies honorably.
Yeah.
In The Last of Us, and that doesn't, you know, that I feel like why should the main characters have the same treatment if that's what the creators are going for? And clearly that's what it is, and that's fine. It's just the story leading up to that is so dumb. It was like just so like conveniently ridiculous, the best way I can put it.
Yeah,
you got to play just even the first couple hours to see that the way it happens.
I'm definitely gonna dabble in it, but I mean,
you won't see it through. I know you won't. I might not even.
I don't think I can. I don't care about games like that, man. You know, a lot of people didn't like fucking Death Stranding because the characters were fucking like not real people. You know what I mean? They were like surreal, like fucking metaphysical ciphers.
Deadman and Hartman and shit, like Die Hardman or whatever the hell his name.
Yeah. I'd take that over fucking this shit any day. What the people that live inside of Westerners' minds and come out in their fiction are fucking awful. I'm just disinterested entirely with their petty like daddy issues and shit. Like, give me a fucking break.
Yeah, it's quite the disappointment, man. I gotta be honest. I don't know.
Yeah.
I honestly, I feel like it's quite a disservice to the original. But you know what? The fucking programmers and the artists and Gustavo and his fantastic music, they deserve a nod for sure. Like, they did great work, and no doubt they spent a fucking immense amounts of fucking time doing this shit. But whoever oversaw the writing, which was probably Neil. I don't feel good about that. I don't know.
Not again, Neil. Not again.
Fuck. Who the hell let this guy run wild with this thing?
One thing's for sure, they're fucking pleased with how it panned out, man. I'm sure it's going to sell a shit ton of copies, and it's received near universal critical acclaim.
I know.
And again, though, user score fucking already 32,629 on Metacritic user scores, and it's got a 3.5. So
that's abysmally low. Yeah, I mean, but Metacritic.
We got ourselves a Last Jedi type situation here, don't we?
Was it Last Jedi? Yeah, Last Jedi. You're right. Star Wars. Yeah, the movie. You're right.
And all the
Game of Thrones season 8. Yeah.
All the critics are like stoked, and everybody else is not stoked at all.
Weird, eh? How's there even that fucking divide? But I also see a lot of people online saying that they fucking love it. I don't know if they're just like bought into the hype of the game. I really don't know.
Maybe they care about like different aspects of it. I don't know. Maybe they like emotional stories about stupid people.
That's possible, I guess.
Yeah. I'm sure there's an audience for emotional stories about stupid people. I bet you most stories nowadays are exactly that kind.
Oh yeah, it's like basically like a soap opera, right?
Yeah, essentially. Yeah. Well, that's The Last of Us 2 so far, according to giving the influence on Green Dragon.
According to this fucking idiot right here,
Yeah.
me.
Universal critical acclaim, but apparently we're lukewarm on it. And I think in the next week or so, I'm gonna have time to dabble in it and offer my thoughts as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a good time as always. I
Yeah.
suppose we'll be back in a week to discuss whatever the fuck we're playing at that time. Hopefully, I'll have finished Dishonored and started playing either The Last of Us or Xenosaga by then.
Right on. Thanks for listening, everyone.
All right, everybody, take care. Eh?
Hope I didn't piss anybody off about The Last of Us.